My name is Paisley Hernandez, and at 34, I've worked my way up to becoming a marketing executive, a role I wear with pride, a result of my dedication and ambition. From the outside, my life might seem flawless, but perfection is often just an illusion. Lately, my marriage to Nathan has become complicated. His actions have sparked doubts in me, ones I never imagined feeling. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly, a sense of unease. Nathan, who's always been punctual, began coming home late more often. Work stressed, he'd say, and it seemed like an easy excuse. But I know corporate life, its unspoken truths and hidden pressures. His reasons felt weak, like hastily constructed stories that unraveled more with each passing day. Then came the quiet phone calls, his voice lowering as though hiding something. When I confronted him, he'd act confused, pretending he didn't understand my suspicions. His performance was so unconvincing, it almost felt like an insult. One evening, my suspicions grew clearer when I overheard a piece of a conversation. Susan, the plan, Paisley won't know. Susan, Nathan's sister. A woman whose sharp eyes and even sharper tongue had always put me on edge. Were they conspiring against me? My heart raced with a mix of anger and fear, but fear was never my way. I preferred to confront challenges head-on, so I chose to mask my concerns with a practiced facade of ignorance when Nathan was around. I'd ask questions, feigning innocence, when he mentioned trips I hadn't been told about. Inside, though, I was putting the puzzle pieces together, terrified of completing the picture. Our story wasn't always this way. We first met at a company event, and his charm matched my drive. We quickly fell into each other's lives. Dinners, walks under the stars, and eventually a home of our own. But as my career soared, his seemed to stall, and something inside him shifted. The man I once loved turned into a stranger, a hollow version of the person I knew. I realized confronting him directly wouldn't help, not yet. I had to understand the game before I could play, so I waited, observed, and made plans. Nathan had no idea I was also strategizing. Sometimes, during quieter moments, I'd wonder how love could turn into such a mess of secrets and pride, but there was no time for that now. The stage was set, and I had to make my move. Nathan, once a source of joy, had become a source of constant unease. It felt heavy, like a weight in my chest. I still remembered when we first met. His charm was irresistible, and his laughter contagious. He seemed so proud of my achievements. But over time, that admiration had transformed into something else. Resentment, maybe. I saw it in his eyes, even when he tried to hide it. Then there was Susan. From the first time we met, I felt her coldness, a calculating air beneath her polite exterior. When Nathan and I got engaged, her congratulations felt forced, almost like she couldn't believe her brother chose someone like me. And then came the night she unexpectedly showed up at our house, asking for money. She needed $6,000 for an urgent matter, she said. The casual way she asked, as if she was entitled to it just because we were family, raised red flags. I agreed, but on my terms. She had to sign a legally binding note. Her irritation was obvious, but she agreed. That night opened my eyes to the toxic dynamic between Nathan and Susan. It was a mix of manipulation and dependence. I realized they had been playing this game for a long time, making up the rules as they went. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, using it as an escape. Nathan's behavior became more erratic, his moods swinging from distant to angry. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, but I wasn't about to back down. If Nathan and Susan were playing dirty, I knew how to strategize. In marketing, planning and foresight are everything, and I was about to apply those skills in a whole new way. Life, I had learned, is like a chess game. Every move counts. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a piece to win. Sitting at my desk, the city lights twinkling below, I realized my game was nearing its climax. The turning point came one Thursday evening, a night that promised peace but delivered chaos. Nathan had become increasingly distant, and that night I uncovered the betrayal I had only suspected. I logged into our joint bank account to pay some bills, a routine task that turned into a shock. There, in black and white, was a withdrawal of $99,000, money I had saved during my single years, money I had hoped to use for a future that now seemed uncertain. The confrontation that followed was ugly. Nathan was caught off guard, stammering between defensiveness and guilt. His excuses were weak, his justifications even worse. This wasn't a mistake, it was a deliberate move, and I knew Susan was behind it. That night, sleep eluded me. The man I thought I knew had become a stranger. His actions spoke louder than any words. He had declared war, and in war there are no rules. The next morning I made 2 calls, one to a divorce attorney, known for her no-nonsense approach, and the other to a private investigator. If Nathan and Susan were playing dirty, I needed to arm myself. The days that followed felt like living in a battlefield. Tension filled the air, unspoken and heavy. Nathan's late-night conversations with Susan became more frequent. Their plans, whatever they were accelerating, but I found an unexpected ally in Beau, Susan's husband. He called me out of the blue, his voice filled with confusion and frustration. "Is Susan there?" he asked, and just like that, the floodgates opened. He'd noticed the same things I had, the secrecy, the sudden need for money. We quickly realized our spouses weren't just siblings, they were partners in this scheme. Together we devised a plan, driven by a need for justice and a thirst for revenge. If Nathan and Susan wanted a game, we were going to give them one they'd never forget. Beau and I were ready to turn the tables. The web of deceit they had woven was complex, but in their arrogance they had missed one crucial thing: the resilience of the people they thought they could manipulate. Beau, quiet and patient, had endured Susan's manipulations for years. His story mirrored mine. Love turned to betrayal. As we sat in a quiet cafe, we formed an alliance, not just of circumstance but of shared understanding. We discovered they were planning a luxurious trip, funded by the money they'd stolen from us. The idea of them enjoying themselves at our expense was the spark that fueled our determination. We had to act, and fast. Our plan was simple but daring. We'd let them go on their trip, but with a twist. They'd find themselves stranded, their resources cut off, far from home. We anticipated their panic, the realization that they weren't as untouchable as they thought. I swapped Nathan's credit card for an expired gym membership. He wouldn't discover the swap until it was too late. Beau would make sure their travel funds were frozen as soon as they reached their destination. The game was on. As the day of their departure drew closer, I watched Nathan pack his bags, pretending not to care. He was bubbling with excitement, completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing in our lives. "You'll miss me, won't you?" he asked, his grin wide and confident. "More than you know," I responded, my words laced with sarcasm, but he didn't pick up on it. When the day finally arrived and they left, a strange sense of freedom washed over me, mixed with a twinge of nervousness. Part of me wanted to confront Nathan, to let out all the frustration I had held back, but I knew that silence was more powerful than any words I could throw at him. Beau and I kept each other updated, watching from the sidelines as their plans started to unravel. As expected, trouble surfaced right away. Nathan's desperate calls, filled with frustration and confusion, were music to my ears. "The card's not working," he shouted in panic, his calm facade cracking. Feigning surprise, I responded, "That's odd. Maybe you should call your bank," making sure my concern sounded genuine, though I was far from it. Days passed, and Nathan and Susan's situation worsened. Stranded with no access to their funds, they were exposed. The tables had turned, and now they were the ones feeling vulnerable. Watching their downfall, I couldn't ignore the bittersweet truth that this marked the end of my marriage, no matter how toxic it had become. Even though I felt a sense of satisfaction seeing their plan fail, it was still a loss. I received occasional updates from Beau, who remained stoic even as his own life was unraveling. Our strategy worked better than we had hoped. With no way to access their stolen money, they were left scrambling for solutions. Nathan's calls grew more frantic. "Paisley, you have to help us. This isn't funny anymore." His voice, once warm and loving, now held an edge of anger that I knew all too well. But I remained unmoved. "I'm sorry, Nathan, but I can't help you," I said, my tone steady and unwavering. His shock was evident even through the phone. For the first time, I wasn't giving in. Meanwhile, Susan's perfect image of the loyal sister and devoted wife crumbled. Beau kept me informed, telling me how her manipulative side was showing, revealing a more sinister version of herself. As the days wore on, Nathan and Susan's situation grew dire. With no other choice, they had to rely on the goodwill of others, humbling for two people who had always looked down on others. The day they were set to return, I felt relief, though I knew this was only the beginning. As I awaited Nathan's arrival, I mentally prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation. When Nathan walked through the door, his usual arrogance was gone, replaced by an air of defeat. He looked at me, searching for the wife he thought he knew, but I was no longer that person. Paisley, he started, his voice faltering. I cut him off, my voice firm and resolute. Save it, Nathan. I know everything. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken truths, and in that moment I realized that I was no longer bound by this marriage. It was over and I was free. The aftermath of their failed trip was a period of reckoning. The house, once filled with laughter, now felt cold and filled with the bitter truth of betrayal. Nathan's return marked the start of a series of confrontations, each one more intense than the last. Our talks, once about shared dreams, now felt like battles where words became weapons. But underneath all the pain and anger, I felt something else: freedom. My meetings with the divorce attorney became a new normal. Each session was a step closer to freeing myself from the marriage that had become toxic. The attorney, sharp and determined, guided me through the process. Meanwhile, Beau also filed for divorce from Susan, and what had started as an alliance of convenience transformed into a genuine friendship. We supported each other, sharing our experiences and beginning the healing process. As the divorce progressed, the full extent of Nathan and Susan's deceit came to light. Bank records, financial statements, and the private investigators' findings painted a clear picture of their betrayal. It wasn't easy to accept, but it only strengthened my resolve. The day the divorce was finalized, I walked out of the courtroom as Paisley Hernandez, independent, stronger, and free. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my career. My hard work did not go unnoticed, and soon I received a promotion, a recognition of my resilience. Life after the divorce became a journey of rediscovery. The world that once seemed defined by my marriage to Nathan was now full of endless possibilities. I began to find joy in simple things: a quiet night with a book, a coffee with Beau, who had become a close friend and support system. One evening, standing on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in beautiful hues, I realized that this wasn't the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one that I was in control of. My marriage's end had closed a difficult chapter, but it also opened the door to a future brimming with potential. In the months after the divorce, I found myself evolving, shedding the weight of the past. My promotion wasn't just a professional achievement, it was a sign of how far I'd come. Beau, too, began his own journey of healing. Our shared experiences created a bond that grew stronger with time. Our regular coffee meetups became more than just a way to talk about the past. They became a source of comfort, a space for understanding. What began as a friendship gradually transformed into something more. One evening, as we walked by the riverside, the city lights reflecting off the water, Beau turned to me, his voice filled with nervousness and sincerity. "Paisley," he said, "these months with you have been a journey I never expected, but I'm grateful for every moment. You've become so much more than a friend to me." His words echoed the feelings I had kept hidden in my heart. "Beau," I replied, taking his hand, "I feel the same. You've been my strength, my joy in the darkest times. I can't imagine my life without you." As we stood there hand in hand, the world around us seemed to fade away. In that moment, there was only us, two souls who had found peace and strength in one another. Life, I realized, was an unpredictable journey filled with joy, pain, love, and loss. It was these very experiences that shaped the masterpiece of life. Looking ahead, I saw a future filled with hope and new possibilities. A future where I was defined by the choices I made and the person I had become. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, with Beau by my side. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay amazed.